Hello children, come back to the continuation of the learning. We were learning the third paragraph. From there we can continue now. A seller of bright colored but doubtful perfumes with his vase mounted on a wheeled platform, a man who spread out cheap storybooks on a gunny sack, another man who carried colored ribbons on an elaborate tray. These were the people who usually gathered under the same arch. On a Thursday, when the young man appeared at the eastern gate, one of them remarked, "Blind fellow, here comes your scourge." Here, the beggar was looked after by an old woman. After befriending the beggar, the dog spent most of its time with the beggar. It defended the beggar from being harassed. A village urchin stole the blind beggar's coin and teased him. In the fourth paragraph, "Oh God, is this thirsty?" he wailed. Wail means a long, high-pitched cry of pain or grief or anger. Here, he swept his arms about and called, "Dog, dog, come here. Where are you?" He made the peculiar noise which brought the dogs to his side. He stroked his head and muttered, "Don't let that little rascal." At this very moment, the boy came up with a leer on his face. What do you mean by leer? Leer means sly and pleasant look. Fifth paragraph. Blind man, still pretending you have no eyes. If you are really blind, you should not know this either. He stopped, his hand moving towards the bowl. The dog sprang on him and snapped his jaws on his wrist. The boy extricated his hand and ran for his life. The dog bounded up behind him and chased him out of the market. Here, the dog was protecting the beggar. A village urchin stole the blind beggar's coins and teased him. This had been going on every Thursday when the boy would come to the market to sell vegetables. And one Thursday, what happened? When the boy was up to his usual mischief, the faithful dog chased the urchin out of the market. In the sixth and seventh paragraph, "See the mongrel's affection for this old fellow," marveled the perfume vendor. One evening, at the usual time, the old woman failed to turn up and the blind man waited at the gate, worrying as the evening grew into night. As he sat fretting there, a neighbor came up and said, "Sammy, don't wait for the old woman. She will not come again. She died this afternoon." The blind man lost the only home he had and the only person who cared for him in this world. The ribbon vendor suggested, "Here, take this white tape." He held a length of the white cord which he had been selling. "I will give this to you free of cost. Tie it to the dog and let him lead you about if he is really so fond of you." The blind woman was taken care by an old woman who was late to come and pick up this beggar. And this beggar was waiting for the lady. And in the evening, a neighbor came forward and he is telling to the beggar, "Sammy, don't wait for the old woman. She will not come again because she has died in this afternoon." So the old woman who had been looking after the beggar died, and the beggar was left homeless and rendered destitute. Here the blind man lost his only home he had, and the person who cared him in this world. And here the ribbon vendor is suggesting and giving a white tape to tie to the dog and let the dog may lead him if the dog is really so fond of him. The ribbon vendor gave the blind beggar a length of ribbon so that he could tie it around the dog's neck and it could lead him about. In the next paragraph, life for the dog took a new turn now. He came to take the place of old woman. He lost his freedom completely. His world came to be circumscribed by the limits of the white cord which the ribbon vendor had spread. What do you mean by circumscribed? It means kept within narrow limits. He had to forget wholesale all his old life, all his old haunts. He simply had to stay on forever at the end of that string. When he saw other dogs, friends, or foes, instinctively he sprang up, tugging the string, and this invariably earned him a kick from his master. Rascal, want to tumble me down? Have sense. In a few days, the dog learned to discipline his instinct and impulse. He ceased to take notice of other dogs. Even if they came up and growled at his side, he lost his own orbit of movement and contact with his fellow creatures. Here now, the dog lost his freedom completely. It is kept within the narrow limits by the limits of a white cord which the ribbon vendor had spared, and he has to simply live on his own old life, his old haunts, everything. And when he saw the other dogs and friends or foes, instinctively he has to sprang up, tugging the string, and this invariably earned him a kick from his master. And he used to scold him, rascal, want to tumble me down? Have you got sense? When we are getting angry, we will be shouting at the people the same way. So, as being a companion, the dog was scolded by the beggar if he do any misbehavior. So, day by day it was going on. At last, in few days, the dog learned to discipline his instinct and impulse. He ceased to take the notice of other dogs. Even if they come up, it will not growl at his side. He lost his own orbit of movement and contact with his fellow creatures. The next paragraph, to the extent of this loss his master gained, he moved about as he had never moved in his life. All day he was on his legs, led by the dog, with the staff in one hand and the dog led in the other. He moved out of his home, a corner in a chowdhury veranda a few yards off the market. He had moved in there after the old woman's death. He started out early in the day. He found that he could treble his income by moving about instead of staying in one place. He moved down the Chowdhury Street, and wherever he heard people's voices, he stopped and held out his hands for alms. Shops, schools, hospitals, hotels, he left nothing out. He gave a tug when he wanted the dog to stop and shouted like a bullock driver when he wanted him to move on. The dog protected his feet from going into pits or stumbling against steps or stones and took him up inch by inch on safe ground and steps. For this sight, people gave coins and helped him. Children gathered round him and gave him things to eat. A dog is essentially an active creature who punctuates his hectic rounds with well-defined periods of rest. But now this dog, henceforth to be known as Tiger, had lost all rest. He had rest only when the old man sat down somewhere. At nights, the old man slept with the cord turned around his finger. "I can't take chances with you," he said. A great desire to earn more money than ever before seized his master, so that he felt any resting a waste of opportunity, and the dog had to be continuously on his feet. Sometimes his leg refused to move, but if he slowed down even slightly, his master guarded him on fiercely with his staff. The dog whined and groaned under his thrust. "Don't whine, you rascal! Don't I give you your food? You want to loaf, do you?" swore the blind man. The dog lumbered up and down and round the marketplace on slow steps, tied down to the blind tyrant. Long after traffic at the market ceased, you could hear the night stabbed by the far-off wail of the tired dog. It lost its original appearance. As months rolled on, bones stuck up at his haunches and ribs were relieved through his fading coat. Here, in this 10th paragraph, we see that the blind man was dependent on the dog, and his dependence made him into a merciless slave driver. The blind man started earning more and more money because he could move about the marketplace with the help of the dog which is leading him. It became a slave to its master. The dog protected the blind man from all the dangers, and the blind man now became wholly dependent on the dog both for making a living and to live. He was possessive about the dog and even slept with the dog's leash turned around his finger. The dog was virtually imprisoned and binded to the old man. If the dog grew tired of walking around leading the blind man, he would guard it on fiercely with his staff. He used to beat the dog with his staff. At night, people could hear the dog's tired wailing, stumbling, and night air. Before long, the dog appeared to be mere bones and skin. He became very thin. Here, by this we stop the lesson. The continuation will be learned in the next class. Thank you. Have a blessed day.